And then we're going to go live on Instagram. It's going to take a moment because it does. Okay, go live there. And we're live in all the places. Good morning, Gabe. Gabe Rosas, one of my favorite astrologers, if not my favorite astrologers. Don't tell any other astrologer, even though this is recorded. I am Vivi Henriette, co-host of this weekly conversation, Ask Me Astros. My other co-host, KristaLyn, is in Egypt, which is why I get to be with you this morning. And I'm not upset about it. So for those who are here, the idea is this is Ask Me Astros. So we talk astrology. People ask questions. This is extra exciting because I have lots of questions for you, Gabe.
Of course.
Do you have any questions for me before we get started?
Other than how you doing? I haven't sat down and talked with you for a minute.
I know.
All been watching this.
I know. I'm good. It's early here. It's 7:07 in Los Angeles. If anyone who's not in Los Angeles is curious about the time.
Early.
It's
very early.
Okay. But you know what? I'm an Aries, so I was made for early, which is my first question. We are moving into Aries season. And I must admit, from a personal standpoint, my sun is at 0 degrees Aries, so I have a bit of an obsession with the beginning of things. And I thought we'd talk something. You talk. I'm asking a question about the Aries ingress chart. For people who don't know what is the Aries ingress chart and why is it important? And how does it fit in when we look at something like the world chart of the Thema Mundi for understanding events for the year ahead?
Well, the Aries ingress chart is basically as soon as the sun gets into Aries.
Okay.
I think there's some tiny debate of whether it's the very first minute or where it goes through that first minute or second of arc.
Okay.
But it's neither here nor there. It's not going to make a difference. So once the sun enters Aries, then you cast a chart, the location at that moment in time, and the idea is that this is supposed to be a indicator of what's going to happen over the next year. Spring equinox to spring equinox. So
okay.
Like from late March to late March next year. So it's supposed to be like a broad indicator. Now it gets used a lot in mundane astrology, or some people are calling world astrology now. No one knows what mundane means anymore. And it gets nestled into a bunch of other techniques to determine political matters or matters that pertain to nations or cities, how crops are going to grow, all kinds of mundane things, kind of.
Okay.
So it's sort of more used in that. Like, it's not really brought into, say, natal astrology necessarily.
Okay.
As a practice, although some people probably are doing that. They mix everything up. So it's definitely can be useful. I mean, comparing it to the Thema Mundi,
yes,
which is the the great sort of archetypal chart of comes out of the Hellenistic period. That's a Cancer rising chart.
Yes.
And Aries is at the midheaven. So you were talking about starting at the beginning, but in that purview, the Aries isn't the beginning. It's sort of like the culmination. It's like, it's like the climax of the cosmos. So it's a different perspective. But if you're going by the way the sun behaves according to the ecliptic, when it aligns with the ecliptic based on declination on the equinoxes, spring and autumn. There, it's sort of like a beginning because it's like, okay, now it's about to go north of that by declination.
Okay.
south if it's the autumn equinox. But it's a different sort of relation to the zodiac. Like where does it start? I mean, the circle doesn't really start anywhere, and so you can start anywhere if you want. So.
Okay, I love that. And have you spent some time thinking about this Aries ingress chart, and do you have any insights to share?
I have not poked around with it because because all these political matters just it's difficult for me to maintain my equanimity because it's just so rage inducing for the most part that witnessing all the horrors and the way people mistreat each other. And so I tend not to look too closely. But I've heard people talk about it, and we can definitely go into it if we want to.
Well,
I'll do it for you, baby.
I know that KristaLyn has spent a lot of time with this chart, and I know that there will be other conversations. There's plenty of time to spend with this chart, and I'd like maybe today to keep somewhat upbeat, although my next question is about eclipses. So let's see how that goes.
Well, again, we're gonna mess around with Aries, or well, no, not necessarily Aries anymore. Now it's probably Libra, because it's the next eclipse is a lunar eclipse. It's next. Yeah. What day is it? Is it next Tuesday? Monday? Yeah, it's next Monday, right?
Yeah, I know it's on the 25th. So
yeah, that'll be Monday. Yeah. So that'll be the thing you get to experience that in that week's Ask Me Astros. Yes, it will be in Libra because it's a full moon. Hence, it's a lunar eclipse. So it's gonna disturb and associate and warp all sort of Libra stuff. It's gonna warp that whole sign. So anyone who has anything prominent in Libra or just has anything in Libra, that area of your life probably gonna get something weird's gonna happen. It's either what started to happen, or that'll be like a day where something notable in terms of like something getting disrupted or literally in some ways blown up or evaporated, kind of, or things disappear. Such in the manner of eclipses. So, and because of course it's in Libra, it's also going to affect all the signs sort of squared. So Aries will see something, probably the other sign they'll have more prominent disruptions.
Yeah.
Especially since the next eclipse 2 weeks after that will be in Aries, solar eclipse, and then of course Capricorn and Libra, Capricorn and Cancer will get a little extra.
Can we actually go back for a moment and show people who how this is like the most simple question, but like how do you two-part question actually. How do you describe eclipses when someone's like, what is eclipse season? That's the first question. And then the second part of that is, how do you describe the, like, as you kind of mentioned, the sort of time warp quality of the sort of change in the quality of time that happens during an eclipse?
Well, let's see. How do we go about that? Well, what would be a good way to start? Well, eclipse season. Eclipse season is sort of the nomenclature that people have taken nowadays to basically delineate that month where the eclipses happen. The eclipses happen in pairs. There's always some sort of lunar or solar eclipse, varying degrees of strength. They occur about twice a year, whenever the sun and the moon are aligned near the nodes of the moon, which are the degrees on the zodiac at that particular moment in time, where the moon goes over or under the plane of the ecliptic, the plane of the zodiac. Okay. So when all those things align, what basically happens is one or the other of these planets appear to disappear. They become dark. If it's daylight, if it's solar eclipse, it'll get dark all of a sudden. If it's the moon, you won't see the moon anymore.
Yeah.
And so that, because the sun and the moon are the monarchs of the cosmos in a way, and in terms of all the manifestation and everything.
Yeah.
They all of a sudden are gone. So it's like if you were in a imagine if you were like at a concert, all of a sudden the act that you're there to watch just leaves the stage. It becomes it's like, oh, what's going on? It's disruption. The whole center of the activity, everything that's coordinating what's happening, not there anymore. And so it causes a disruption in the normal course of affairs.
So, okay. Hi, Amber. Um, causes okay, so the lights go out. How do you when people talk about like the dragon hole or like like time speeding up or slowing down, is that something you also ascribe to the eclipses, and how would you explain that?
Well, some of that is the dragon stuff is sort of it's something of an importation, I guess, from Persian or Indian myth
Okay.
associated with the nodes, uh, envisioning them as if they were some sort of dragon that had been
Yeah.
beheaded or some sort of wrathful being that has been beheaded, and in their sort of rage, they want to take it out on the sun. I am partial. I like the sort of the Norse version.
Oh, tell us what that is.
Well, there are two. The Norse version, there are two wolves,
Okay.
and uh, Gati and Hoti,
Okay.
and they one of them wants to eat the sun, and one of them wants to eat the moon. And so whenever there's an eclipse there, it's the one wolf has that particular light in its mouth for the moment, but then it gets away, obviously, because then the
Yeah.
sun comes out and the moon comes out again. So the idea is at the end of the days, Ragnarok, they will finally win, and they will eat the sun and the moon for good, and then Thor will kill them or something. So that's sort of their sort of take on it. I don't know, I kind of like it because it's got wolves. Wolves are cool, right? So, but the thing is, the sun and the moon are integral to our conception of time. They help us create our narrative of what time is.
Yeah.
They disappear or something weird happens to them, that distorts our narrative of time and our perception of time. So things can get weird, things speed up or slow down, or you could you could be in a state where the day it feels like this, it feels like 5:02 in the afternoon lasts 12 hours, or you could be like you could open your eyes and then all of a sudden you're closing your eyes again, like what happened. It
Yeah.
also disturbs our because we're kicked out of our sort of normal concept of time. It also distorts this sort of waking world and the dream world. So another phenomenon that usually happens is people start getting all sorts of weird, dramatic dreams. I know last night, I mean, I haven't had dreams in a little bit that I
Yeah.
remembered, and last night there were like 3 or 4 things that must have happened that are at the periphery of my remembrance at the moment. But it was like, okay, it's time. It's starting to. It's starting to happen. So
How would okay, let's kind of get into the specifics here. So these eclipses that we've been having, of course, on the Aries Libra axis, if you how are there any themes that for people who again, there's people who are listening to this and they're like they've just overloaded on this because they're astrologers, but maybe people who are new to this and everyone in between. But so for you, what are some of the themes we could generally say about eclipses um, in this part of the chart, both maybe for the world and also something that people can think about in their own charts?
well, for the world, eclipses tend to be dire things. They tend to portend, the death of rulers or have some sort of devastation, droughts and calamity and all that stuff. Um, Obviously that requires that the eclipse be very intimately connected to something
Yeah.
in a chart for a city or a country or whatever. So does not automatically mean that chaos will reign, but it has that reputation, and people traditionally feared it. I remember, I think there was one notable thing. I think during the Peloponnesian War, there was some battles between the forces of Sparta and Athens, I think, and all of a sudden they had no idea what's happened in the middle of this battle, and everybody like ran away. Everyone just stopped fighting and ran away because they're like, oh no, it's an eclipse. It's like it put that kind of fear into them that even though they were like in the middle of hotly contested battle, the minute
Yeah.
that happened, they got religion and just ran off. And so people tend to view these events with a lot of fear. Now, maybe that's not the most useful way to go about it. Or for a person new to a life, the eclipse is basic. Eclipses are lunations, and we have lunations all the time. They're just
Yes.
specially lunations. And lunations, by their nature, have a level of disruption where they are these sort of points in a cycle of development where either matters are instantiated, like a new moon, and so there's all that disruption of something starting to happen, or when certain matters culminate, like a full moon, and also presage the end of things. Well,
Yeah.
and the new moon also, obviously, the beginning of something is the end of something else, and
Yeah.
so you have this tandem where you get moments of fluctuation. So they're kind of disruptive. They're kind of uncomfortable. Eclipses are like that, but even more so. They're they they definitely have upped the sort of temperature and the volume of the kind of disruptions that occur. Something uh, very dramatic. They tend to have some sort of drama to them. Something ends in a very spectacular manner, or something happens, in likewise spectacular manner that something comes to this sort of climax.
Yeah.
And so again, these are disruptive. So while I would say, other than the usual, avoid the baleful rays, don't go outside in the light,
Yeah.
maybe relax that day, don't get too excited, don't get too emotional, don't get too caught up in whatever happens. Um, yeah, I would expect that these matters of life get some sort of uh, extra attention, extra chaotic energy.
Yeah. Specifically when um I know you spent a lot of time reading ancient texts on eclipses that are hard for me to understand and other such matters. Um, but when we're thinking about eclipses, I mean, I know it's important to consider the signs because that's obviously where it's happening in your chart. But like could you say that there are maybe themes around these eclipses that are particular, right? Specific to the Aries Libra axis. Like what flavors these are, yeah, colors these eclipses. God, bad words here, but you know what I mean? Like shapes these eclipses in a particular way around the sign.
It makes sense. Color and light and all that are related, right? And we're dealing with the light's disappearance.
Yeah.
These are all good syntactical elements to this. Because of this axis, and going to the thing wounding as I will as a trad chad.
Yeah.
Um, that axis is the fourth and the 10th, right? It's the other angles as opposed to the sort of celestial, the cosmic, um, you know, ascendant and descendant of Cancer and Capricorn. So what's going to happen? What's going to get disrupted? People's starting with the Libra one, the land, the ground under your feet. Something's going to happen. It's going to feel like maybe it's like an earthquake, something analogous. People's foundations are going to get churned up and disrupted and damaged, possibly. People's sort of that sense of home, that sense of sort of community, that sense of like where you've come from is going to get. It's going to get eclipsed. It's going to sort of disappear. You're going to sort of feel like the loss of motivation of that, and the guidance in the sense that that guides you as you go through life. So there's going to be that sort of aspect of this one. The next one, now it's tense. Now it's like the result of your actions, and you know, maybe the highborn among you, or sort of like the goals you have set for yourself, or this sort of thing is going to get disrupted. You know, you'll have difficulty seeing like where you're going, what you're trying to do, and any sort of guidance from the people who supposedly know better and are situated above you. So the people who run things, it's going to look like they don't know how they're running, or where they're running things to, or where they go. It's going to seem like they sort of went away. So it's going to be that sort of disruption, that sort of angle in the general sense.
And
for an individual, it's going to be, okay, where are, you know, Aries and Libra in their chart, and that whole axis, depending on where that is, that's what's going to have these sort of dramatic disruptions.
Interesting thinking about, so the biggest sort of when you think about where the eclipses, like sign based where they're happening, and bringing it back to the theme of Mundi, like wow, totally, it totally makes sense considering everything that's going on in the world, especially, you know, in light of what we had, the last eclipse in the Libra axis in early October. Yeah. Right. That was the last big shift in this narrative.
Yeah. So it's part of that. It's part of that chain. So whatever, like for the audience at home, think about October, sort of what happened, and that sort of will give you an idea of like what to expect. Okay. Especially for this one. In a way, it'll be a part of that chain. So it'll be sort of whatever aspect of your life that's been having these sort of bombs drop on it, in a sense. Have that in mind.
By the way, I want to put this out here. If anyone has any questions for Gabe, like literally any question, drop it in the chat. And if you're watching this on Instagram, you can hop over to my YouTube, Art of the Zodiac, and chat freely with us here. Or I guess if you put it in the chat on Instagram, I can pop in there too. So how do you move through eclipse season personally without just feeling dread? Like you're saying these things and you're like, just wait for things to, like, you know, for this upheaval. And obviously there's a lot of terrible, you know, the world's a mess right now and there's things that can't be avoided. But, you know, individually, how can we move through this without feeling, again, dread?
I mean, other than, well, for one thing, understanding that this is part of the natural cycle of existence. Yeah. And these things have always happened. And they will keep happening because, you know, things fluctuate, things come to be and pass away. People are dumb and people keep doing terrible things to each other. I mean, there's something about the moment that obviously catches your attention because it's in the moment in your life. So it seems very dramatic, but over the course of everything, it's par for the course. So there's that. Also, I mean, this is a good time to, like, okay, to try to manifest things. This is the time to contemplate things. This is the time to settle in and look inward and sort of help establish within yourself a sense of equity. So basically just relax. I mean, it's very simple. Don't you know, concoct some scheme. Don't do eclipse magic. Don't do all this other stuff. unless you're summoning the end of days, it's not good for anything else.
You know, I like that. Like, I know no magic on eclipses, no manifesting, but I like that they're replacing this sort of manifesting energy. I just loathe that word, but fair enough. Replacing that with, you said, what, contemplation?
Yeah.
right? Like this sort of looking inwards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a good time to do any sort of purification rituals or house or tidy up your affairs or set things in sort of order. It's not a time to like start a venture. It's more like it's like a maintenance. It's like maintenance time. And sometimes the
Ooh.
maintenance is internal. You have to sit with things and not sort of just see them for what they are, not get caught up in the tumult that is natural to these sort of times, these sort of essentially regularly scheduled calamities.
Yes, so I'm answering someone in the chat. I can see. Oh, I just answered. I can see comments, and it responded with all of my accounts. So yes, I can see comments. While we wait for comments, Gabe, talking about this, like, do you personally have any? So eclipses, time for contemplation, time for like just settle, like getting your things together. Do you have any really good eclipse stories to share, like ways that like your life was sort of changed through an eclipse?
I mean, the only one that I can remember that isn't really very good. Years and years ago, it was a Taurus eclipse. And it was like a Taurus lunar eclipse, and I was like, I'm gonna go look at this, like an imbecile. And I did, and that was sort of. I mean, it was on its way anyway, right? Because whatever choices I made, but after that I had a series of first calamities over the next. I want to say over the next year or so. I mean, it coincided with a bunch of things. Coincided with Saturn return, also there's sort of dire portents. But yeah, like had to move, got sick, was in the hospital, all this kind of stuff happened. Not too long after that Taurus eclipse, and so it was like that's when I learned to avoid the baleful rays. I had to, I'm not proud of it, but sometimes I am the person who has to learn that fire actually burns, put my hand in it, as opposed to pretending or listening to people who know better. Um, but yeah, so I don't avoid the baleful rays.
Avoid the baleful rays.
I cannot stress that enough. Avoid the baleful rays.
I don't.
And of
I
course,
don't want to
we're
get.
gonna see
I don't want to
we're
get
gonna
political here, but I will just pop in. There's that. What was it? The 20. Was it 2017? The last time we had the full solar eclipse, the great
um,
eclipse.
oh yeah, that was 2017. The Great American Eclipse is what they called it, right? And this
Yeah.
and the solar one is going to cross it. It's coming the other way. So they make like a big X, and the X, the center of it is like some part of Texas. So of course people are like, oh no, there's going to be some like horrible thing that happens in that part of Texas because they got hit with two eclipses. It's going to be like a Cthulhu rise or whatever, some horrible thing. Hopefully not, but Texas is clearly like in people's minds because it's one of these sort of. It's not really a battleground, is it? It's more one of these theaters where we get to see the agendas of a certain wing of our political uh, environment engage in all kinds of dehumanizing nonsense. So
Absolutely.
yeah, and so it's obviously ground zero of reproductive rights, um, the rights of bodily autonomy, and the rights of people to do what they will themselves. Um, I just recently now it's like they're attacking, they're attacking pornography, but what they're doing is they're trying to attack a whole spectrum of modern sexuality. Like, oh, we're just going to evaporate it with some laws. So it's pretty ridiculous, and because of the corruptions of our system, a small minority gets to hammer in everything they want, and there isn't any easy way to get rid of them. unless they literally got rid of it. But
I
still, the
just
math.
wasn't there that photograph of like Trump staring just at the eclipse, just without any sort of protection?
Yeah.
And I didn't the move to go into it, but I just like that image just is like sort of imprinted in my mind of like, man, like what sort of eclipse monster is this? To like stare the dragon in the face. But
Well, yeah. I mean that. I'm sure if we were from a different time, we would say this proves that he's possessed by the devil.
yeah,
We must burn him at the stake, just for the sake of the nation. But alas, we do not live in such enlightened times, and so we have to
it's
put up
so
with him.
tempting. I've never wanted to remove so badly. Oh Lord. At any rate, we'll side
Yeah.
that for a group chat should anyone want to join us in the future. The politics of eclipse talk, DM me. We do have a question though for you, Gabe. That's not from
All
me.
right.
Mortal and Wild says the April eclipse is going to be exact on my Jupiter and Aries in my third house. What say you about that?
Well, first off, it's in your third house. So, uh, taking it from there, I would start with okay, what disruption will occur in your sort of local, near your home, uh, amongst the people who are very close to you. So your sort of close friends, your like hometown friends, or people who are associated with you, sort of like personally, not necessarily people professional,
Yeah.
not sort of professional friends. Um, Also siblings. That's the other thing. If you have any siblings, expect some news from that front. Like they'll have some sort of dramatic alteration. Now it's happening on Jupiter. So Aries in the third, so you probably have. So that would be the 11th. Yeah. The 11th would be, well, the second would be Pisces.
Okay.
So the 11th would be Sagittarius. So for you personally, there's going to be some sort of disruption, probably with money. Some maybe either you get unexpected windfall or unexpected expense relating to could be relating to matters of your sibling. Maybe your sibling needs money. All of a sudden,
Ooh.
you gotta say, so that could be a way that it comes about. Or you have to do work outside your house, like for some reason, they got to tear up the water pipes, and you have to pay for it because it's part on your property. So, oh, so that would be what I would be on the lookout for, maybe.
I I will say my chart, I have the opposite chart. So I have Libra is my third house and my IC is there. And I
Yeah.
have my son, and you know this, my son in Aries in the ninth. But just to reiterate the sibling thing, when we had the Libra eclipse that was on my IC, I got in touch with my stepbrother who I haven't talked to in a decade. Like he like reached out to me, right?
Mm.
Like crazy, unexpected, like third house siblings.
Yeah, definitely.
And I also just had like a huge change in like community, and just like that was sort of the eclipse cycle for me that really inspired my moving
Yeah.
rather suddenly, very very eclipsy. But yeah, I can attest to that third house. It was just remarkable, like out of nowhere, like within days of the eclipse, my brother reached out to me.
Yeah, that's the sort of thing.
Yeah, so wild.
Yeah, it's like, wow, this stuff actually works. Oh,
Uh-huh.
this actually means something. I'm not wasting my time.
You know, I've been thinking about, right, it's interesting, I know it's a bit away, I mean, not too far, but we're having these eclipses now, and you think about, like, I don't know, I guess I think of, like, the eclipses in some ways is like rearranging I don't know, it's like I want to say like rearranging the furniture, but it's also kind of like sometimes it's rearranging the furniture, sometimes it's like throwing out all the furniture and getting new furniture. It's just like the whole like redecoration that happens in a part, like the remodel, I should say, not redecoration, like a remodel that happens in a particular part of the zodiac. Would you sort of agree with that?
Oh yeah, it's definitely. I mean, depending on where this is and what kind of eclipse and what it hits on your chart, it could be anything from dusting the furniture to setting the room on fire.
Good one.
It's somewhere in that range, you know. Obviously we want the one and not the other, but
Hey, sometimes, I mean, I can attest to this. Sometimes things need to burn down.
yeah,
You know,
sometimes
having
yes,
experienced fires myself.
yeah,
But that's it. But I say that because, you know, we're having these we are finishing this eclipse series. And then what? In like a year, like not that long, I'm like year and a half or something, very, very soon, Saturn and Neptune are both moving into Aries at the same time, right? For that big Saturn Neptune conjunction at 0 degrees Aries. Do you like, are you thinking about how this eclipse story might like feed into that story? And this is a good way to pivot. And like, what are your thoughts on that story? I know it's a bit away, but it's really
yeah.
not.
I think for that it would fit in the sense that this is like sort of the thing that sort of comes next. Like, okay, you have this place has been disrupted the last 18 months.
Yeah.
Soil has been tilled in a way
Uh-huh.
as by these disruptions, and now all of a sudden, the old farmer comes in, Saturn, and with Neptune. So what is that? What is that? What does that go? So Saturn. I don't know. I kind of have this one. It's okay. It's midheaven of the theme. So Saturn is going to sort of constrict and compress these sort of the highborn in a way. Maybe there'll be a changing of the guard. There'll be I this is a that's a tangent. Let me get to that. It could also be like the reduction of enthusiastic sort of goals. Like people have fantasies of what they want and what they don't want, and then this will be the okay. We're gonna come back to reality, and you're gonna have to chop away stuff on the wish list, and this is what you're gonna get. This is like within the realm of the feasible, right? Then we have Neptune. So what Neptune is going to want to do is distort all that. And so I think part of this will be some sort of dynamic of a certain constriction that occurs in terms of the result of what we can do as a collective. But then not understanding that, maybe not actually realizing that we're gonna make do with less.
Okay.
Or maybe we don't think it's less, maybe we think it's more, or maybe we'll have the sense that we've gotten rid of the stuff we wanted to get rid of all along. Whether that's true or not, whether we deceive ourselves or not, or are telling ourselves the truth. That sort of thing. This is other because it's a malefic going into a sign of another malefic. I kind of have this sort of sense that things that are old are gonna experience a level of rejection in that period. So anything that is old, or things that are time-honored things will be contested. I think the elderly themselves will maybe suffer a sort of public disapproval. We already sort of get a taste of this now, this time, where we have, on the one hand, elderly people have been sort of mainly affected by the pandemic and other sort of health concerns. And we have our political situation where we have all these people are too old. It's the thing. They're too old. But behind that is there's a disregard for the old.
Mm.
I feel this is the sort of thing that's going to keep. It'll reach some sort of culmination during the Saturn and Aries thing. So it could be we'll hear more about elder abuse, or we'll see how poorly healthcare, elderly care is in this country at least, or elsewhere. And we'll see how badly the pandemic actually affected them. Worst comes to worst, it'll be a situation where we've had this already with COVID, but maybe other health concerns will come up, and there's another increase in mortality for the elderly. So,
wow. Do you think it could also be like the dissolution of like time-honored, but yeah, dissolution of like long-standing laws and traditions, right? Like,
yeah, that's definitely, I think, anything Mars. Well, Saturn's going to want to work on martial stuff because it's going to
okay.
be martial. Mars is going to rejection, not just rejection, but severing or contesting things. Right? It doesn't want to accept things for what they are, and so it will attack. Its inclinations to attack. Now Saturn is going to work on these things, so Saturn's going to put itself in a hostile situation. It's going to deal with stuff that are spiky, things that are spiky and hurt when you touch them, right? So all these sort of time-honored traditions or the norms or anything like that that we hold as like sort of common wisdom will get challenged, disrupted, severed. It'll get rejected. People reject these old rules. They'll reject the wisdom of the old people, of the ancients, or the time itself. They'll just like, screw this. Yeah, and so if you think things are hostile now, wait another year. But yeah.
How do you like when you think about it? Feels very jarring, the move from Saturn and Neptune to Saturn into Aries. Like, I don't know. I've been thinking about it in some ways almost as like, I know that Neptune sort of brings delusion wherever it goes, but it feels like there's been this just like almost just like mass confusion with Saturn in like we've been like in this strange like dream world. And I think about like even like in film, there's been this sort of proliferation of like magical realism films that are out, right? Like it feels there's this just sort of like big dream, and like the move into Saturn with Saturn and Neptune into Aries just feels very jarring. Do you think I'm getting that right?
Yeah, I think it's like getting jolted out of the dream, right?
Yeah.
You have the dream and you have that moment where you just wake up, right? It's going to be something like that. It's going to be some disturbance of the vibe that we're in.
Disturbance of the vibe.
The vibe's going to be ruined.
I'm laughing because what else is there to do? Thinking about, I mean, okay, let's kind of continue to sort of scale out here. By the way, I'm going to repeat this one more time. I act like that sounds very jarring itself, but okay. If anyone has any questions for Gabe, please put them in the comments. I'm asking lots of questions because I have endless questions, but really we do this. So if anyone has a question for Gabe, put it in the chat. If you're on IG, you can hop into YouTube and converse with us there. So if we're thinking about like kind of scaling out here now, we just talked about the Saturn Neptune conjunction in Aries, but we also know that, well, Uranus is going to be moving soon enough into Gemini, right? Pluto just moved into Aquarius. I know it's going to dip back to Capricorn for a moment, but go back. It's like in a short period of time, the entire sky is, if we think about outer planets, right? The entire sky is changing. We have 3 planets that tend to stay places for a very long time, and they're all going to be somewhere new. General thoughts.
Well, I mean, those sorts of planets, we no, but it's the whole, again, these long cycles that occur over time.
Yeah.
Things change, and so because these are the much bigger ones, much bigger sort of moments change. Maybe that's sort of more dramatic. So Saturn being sort of foundation,
Yeah.
that's already like a big thing, and then you throw in these other unruly outers, and they bring in chaos and little distortion and delusion, and but also sort of this sort of expansive insight, that sort of Neptune vibe, and Uranus just lightning. It's sort of almost like, just sort of dramatic accident and sudden change. So yeah, it's like, but these things are normal. People will panic, people will be upset, but these are, things have occurred forever and will continue to occur until the sun explodes. So I wouldn't worry. I wouldn't get too worried.
I do. I'm trying. I think about this a lot, of like wanting to be able to talk about astrology without like having this sort of entering the cloud of doom or perpetuating the cloud of doom. That being said, thinking about, do you think about Uranus and Gemini as like disrupts? Someone mentioned this to me, and I was like, oh yeah, that checks. Disruptions to air quality.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna go stick symbols in that way, you're going to their sign, should be disrupting air things. It's Gemini, right? So it's going to disrupt communication. It's the 12th house of the famous moon, so it's going to maybe it'll be good. Maybe it'll disrupt the enemies of the cosmos. But disruptions to people who would try to isolate. There's this.
Oh.
Yeah, think of it this way. If you think of the 12th as a kind of isolation, like for good or ill, either being sequestered by the state as like a prison, or people sequester themselves as a monastery, or people who want to retreat or something like that. The disruption to that, a disruption to you tried to get away from the world, and then the world came a knock. And so this is a personal bias for me. I don't. A lot of people think, okay, the world's chaos. I'm just going to escape somewhere. I'm going to hide on a farm, hide in some obscure place, and trouble will not find me. And I'm like, trouble will absolutely find you. And I made it easy because now you're somewhere where no one will help you. You hid in a hole and someone came a digging, and there's no way to escape. There's no way to escape the system of the world. We are all in. And think otherwise, delude yourselves. So,
I love that.
Make your this is I forget who the quote is from. It's one of these Tibetan masters. It's like, my religion is to not deceive myself. And I think that's good advice.
I mean, it was you're breaking up from so let me see if I can repeat this back to you.
All right.
Do you say, my religion is not to deceive myself?
Yes.
Oh.
I forget exactly who said that, but I know it's a Tibetan religious person, so I'll have to look that up. But it's a very good saying, but it's also like a good idea to sort of center in your life. Like, don't deceive yourself. It's so easy. We do it all the time. In all manner of things, right?
Absolutely. I like what you said about the sort of isolation thing. It's interesting thinking about Uranus and Taurus, and I'm just thinking about like I don't know, like there's this sort of trend, and maybe it's been a trend forever. I mean, it's been the human trend, right? I think of like castles and moats, but of people like trying to like escape or sequester and like build bunkers, right? And like something about Uranus and Gemini, and you think about it too, like air quality, right? Like no one can escape the air. Like if we think about the environmental concern moving that way, this idea that like somehow this on a mass level for us being forced to realize that there is no escape. We kind of all are here, and we have to do it together. And I think maybe the disillusion of that, like sort of the hideaway dream. What is the opposite of back to the land? Like into the air? I don't.
Into the air. Oh yeah, I mean, again, nothing would bring a group of people together than the idea that they can't because the air is full of toxins, or something like who knows? Maybe there'll be volcanoes. But the other thing that comes to mind is the United States being in wars when Jupiter's in Uranus, and now for those who know history. There's always wars. There's always wars. I think it's been 4 years we haven't been in a war, but it's not a big war. Like usually, Uranus Gemini are like a big wars, like the Civil War or World War, or super dramatic. So hopefully that won't happen. Although, look at the state of the world, we are careening to some sort of use a correction. I want to use like an economics term. We're entering a period of correction.
Yeah.
To smooth over how awful that could potentially be in terms of events. And so it's clear where we've been on a path of some sort of stabilization of international norms. And maybe that'll be the time when it culminates. We get to see exactly how this shakes out, or perhaps the actual contestation. Because another thing people seem to they drop the ball on sometimes with Mercury is that Mercury loves contest.
Mercury loves what? I couldn't hear you.
Contest.
Okay. Yes.
Contest. Like loves contestation. Mercury gets lawyers. Mercury, literally, agon, which is like contest in Greek, where we get agony from. Mercury likes that. Mercury likes a fight. Likes to watch the fight. Likes to start the fight. Instigate the fight. And so there's going to be that. The idea of sudden contestation in the air. People just go all of a sudden want to fight. Yes, like Kelly, always want to fight, and so that'll be a thing. I think that'll be tempers have been flaring, and people have been having to deal a lot of stuff, and eventually, I think people will get to a point where they just want to take it out on someone, and that's always a sort of a danger.
And then add that to the
doom. Add that to the doom file.
The out with the old conversation.
Yeah, add it to the doom file.
So okay. Someone has we do not have a question, but we have a comment to end on. Technology manipulating our thoughts and minds. Okay. Or evolving if we are talking Uranus.
Technology manipulating or evolving. I think people put too much into evolving. Change happens, and evolution is a value judgment. Change is a constant, is actual observable constant. Stick to that.
I like that.
In terms of being manipulated by technology, are we really being manipulated by technology, or are we manipulating ourselves using like people who build this technology have ideas about the world, the way it should be, the way people should relate to each other, and these suppositions get baked into the technology, how they design it and implement it, and then people work with it, and now it sort of changes the dynamic a bit. Just as if you may say certain things, other people may take these things in a different way than what you meant. Once the thing comes out, once whatever you do gets released into the wild, now it's like it's your own thing, and it will also change. And so I think what we do with our technology in a lot of ways shows us what are the things we want, what are our desires, you know. Do we, part of it's like, do the sense of the literal algorithm where we always want to get juiced up by something. Show me something that like gets me going somehow, you know, whether it's anger or titillation or something. People want this. People want to be in a constant state of getting jazzed up in some way, getting that dopamine.
Yeah.
Why? Well, why do we want a dopamine hit all the time? What are we trying to avoid by doing that? You know, people, you know, it isn't that all this terrible phone has stolen your life. No, you've thrown your life into the phone because you don't want to put the life in the other stuff that you have that are around you. You're trying to get out. You know, this is like your lifeline from a world that feels oppressive, right? It's not actually oppressive. So, yeah.
Final question. Actually, let me check to see if there's not anyone else has more questions. Okay. Just as you were talking, I was thinking, man, like these transits, like this, it feels like we're entering very ungrounded times. Do you think because I'm thinking about like this, like almost like just the sort of reality check of like everything that's sort of been I like this word contestation, right? Like it almost feels like just like dealing with everything we've just sort of this like dealing with everything that like all the destruction that we've created and having to just sort of deal with it in a really big way. Do you think in some ways, do you foresee kind of like people kind of getting I don't know, having like a technology sort of burnout? I don't know why that just sort of came to me. I've been thinking myself lately, I mean, this is more personal, but like trying to like talk to people on the internet or Instagram or whatever. And like, I feel like the algorithm hates me and it just feels like I'm sort of burnt out staring at a phone. And half the time I just want to throw it across the room. I don't know if that's just me, or do you think we're sort of entering, there's something to that?
Oh no, I think social media is it's starting to turn. It's starting to curdle up.
Yeah.
I think it's been happening for a little bit now. Part of it's the same old, same old. You know, we've been having this sort of interaction for like 20, 25 years. Now that I think of it, you know, hard. Oh my god, I've been on the internet too long. But it's like, yeah, I remember Usenet. Back in my day, we had Usenet, and then became forums, and became Reddit, became MySpace, and then we got Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Threads, TikTok, and TikTok's already like starting to like everyone's like up in arms with TikTok. It's already starting to contract very slowly. It's like it's literally just like past that sort of peak of its what's the right word, activity, or it's already starting to decline. You know, it's just about started, and in any other year, people are like, TikTok, that's for old people. You know, something like that, and then something else will come out. So, but I think people are tired of it. People are tired of because it's literally just the same old, over and over again, and it gets boring. People want something else. People want something else to titillate them, right? So what that will be, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if we'll rediscover the joy of hanging out with each other, even though there are viruses in the air. I think that you know, there's that. But yeah, so it definitely feels like social media has sort of passed its time.
Totally.
Matter of like how it declines and what happens afterwards. Because one side effect of social media has been to group people together.
Yeah.
And we've already started to see the balkanization of people. The social media fading away started to accelerate that. Where people, okay, they get rid of social media, but now they're more disconnected from wider groups of people, and just more married into whoever they are locally, and how that eventually will lead some sort of conflicts, because eventually these groups will meet these sort of isolated groups will meet each other, and then they will relate to each other in time, manner, fashion.
Totally. This sort of, we've created these sort of, if I'm hearing you right, these sort of isolated groups and then sort of just sending them out in the world. And we're not really, I mean, one of the benefits of social media can be to connect people. So it's this sort of big disconnect on all levels.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Final last question, I swear, because thank goodness Cameron Steele came in, has a really good one. Cameron is an astrologer, writer, magician, has a wonderful Substack called Interruptions. We're collaborating on a course on storytelling and astrology. Just a quick drop for that. But Cameron's asking, what astrological signatures are inspiring you right now, Gabe? And we'll have a private conversation, Cameron. But yes, what astrological signatures are inspiring you right now?
I don't know. I am thinking of Jupiter. I think Jupiter is sort of, personally, because of Taurus, it's, it already has spent time with my natal south node, and now it's spending time. Well, it's going to spend time with my natal fortune. So I'm curious as to see how that sort of changes things, because I'm at that age where fortune is probably a little more prominent.
Okay.
That's sort of astrological factor. This is like sort of inside, holistic baseball. But it's like, yeah. So I'm kind of curious how that really sort of affects me in terms of literally the world, the manifestation of the world around me, like how, and I'm not entirely sure. I'm not entirely sure that's going to be good. It'll be good. But I'm sort of trepidatious because it's again, it's the time. It's hard not to worry when there's a lot to worry about.
I think that's been the theme. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna end on this. So you're personally inspired. I like it. You're both in. Oh, we have another question. Good one. Was Jupiter on the South node depletion or intense spiritual experience, or both? Good question, Cam.
How about intense spiritual depletion? Yeah. I mean, I honestly probably would say it that way. It felt it probably wasn't just spiritual either, but also just like vitality, just feeling like I'm just gonna lie down. It's been a lot of napping. But napping has become like a thing now for me. Which last time I remember that happening was when I was a child. I loved to sleep. I loved to take naps, and now it's sort of become that thing again. Like, I could be doing something. No, I'm gonna nap for like 3 hours, and then I'll wake up and maybe I'll do something. So yeah.
And part of this is coming from, like, as a natal signature, would you consider Jupiter South node tending to be both could be intense spiritual experience and depletion? Like, do you read both those things in the natal chart with a Jupiter South node signature? And is there something you'd add to that?
I mean, it could, as a general thing, because there's that association of the South node with spiritual things, although now we're introducing Jyotish into the mix, I guess. Jupiter itself being, naturally inclined to spiritual, so anything dramatic with that. But also, there's that sort of, I can't get away from the whole malefic angle of the nodes, and how things could be, in a sense, feeling dissociated from it. Like, it's not the intense spiritual experience of, wow, I'm being very inspired by spirit, by my gods, by whatever my ancestors, and more like, I don't know, I can't hear anybody anymore, or it's like it feels like it's the intensity that's like that comes from the anxiousness of not feeling anything, not feeling that connection,
like just feeling lost, right? Like feeling that kind of like, it almost sounds like you're describing like a void.
Yeah, like feeling like you're in a void.
Okay,
that's good.
Checks. This has been wonderful, Gabe, and thank you so much both for Myrtle and Wild and Oh, I'm going to share one last comment. Thank you, Mortal and Wild and Cameron, for sharing. Thank you, Gabe. Last comment. My son has Jupiter South Node in the first house, and it has been both an intense disability to be with the stars, but also like impossible weight on his body to get him proper nutrition.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
See.
it's a good share, Cameron.
Yeah. That would be a thing. That would be the thing that I'd worry about. Like in general, I mean, it's the first house. I have Jupiter natally in the first house, so it already has that sort of physical connotation. So part of the things, part of it's like just feeling like I'm tired. But there's nothing really wrong. I've been to the doctor. It's not like I got some secret illness. It's just, like this, the natural vitality is sort of reduced, and this disinclination of food. Yeah, that's also, I would also throw that in. That makes sense to me. That also has like been a thing.
Wow. Wonderful. Not wonderful, not eating, but wonderful that we sort of landed on a note of depletion.
Wonderful depletion. Yay.
Well, we started really big and we came down. We brought it back. Okay. Officially, this has been wonderful. I'm Vivi Henriette. Although my sign here, if you're watching the video, says Vivi and Henriette, I am in fact one person. Don't be deceived. Thank you, Gabe Rosas, for joining. I am live every Monday for Ask Me Astros, usually with KristaLyn, who is in Egypt, which is why we got you, Gabe. It's been a treat for me. KristaLyn's in Egypt. They're having a great time. So I'm excited that I got to spend this time with you.
Yes, I love hanging out with you. Hopefully soon we'll be hanging out, right? In Norwalk, at least.
Yes,
Not
we will.
Somewhere else. Norwalk.
Absolutely. So with that, I will end the stream and have a beautiful day. Bye, everyone.